The emergency lights were flickering in a rhythmic, almost hypnotic pulse. But the screaming, the sound of 300 people realizing they might not touch the ground alive, suddenly just stopped. I was staring at a child's teddy bear on the floor, and for some reason, the fur on the bear was moving as if it were breathing. That's when I realized I wasn't breathing at all. And then, the silence became louder than the engines. I've been a flight attendant for 7 years. You get used to the turbulence, the tired faces, the routine of checking seatbelts. It becomes a dance you do in your sleep. That afternoon, we were somewhere over the Rockies. The sky was that piercing, thin blue that looks beautiful until you remember there's no air up there. I remember serving a coffee to a man in 12C. I noticed a small gold ring on his pinky finger. Then the cabin pressure dropped. It wasn't like the movies. There was no massive explosion. Just a sharp pop in my ears and the yellow masks dropping from the ceiling like plastic ghosts. I moved to help an elderly woman struggling with her strap. I reached for my own mask, but when I pulled it, the tubing was pinched. I remember trying to untangle it, my fingers feeling heavy, like I was wearing thick wool gloves. I looked down at my hands. They were turning a strange shade of blue-gray. I should have been terrified. I'm a trained professional. I know what hypoxia does. But I just felt annoyed, like I was too tired to care about the oxygen anymore. I leaned against the galley wall. The carpet under my shoes felt incredibly soft, vibrating with the hum of the plane. I thought about my cat, Luna. I thought about how I forgot to wash my coffee mug that morning. Everything became very, very slow. I saw my coworker, Sarah, shouting my name from the end of the aisle, but her voice sounded like it was underwater, miles and miles away. I closed my eyes just for a second, and in that second, the plane disappeared. I didn't feel the floor anymore. It was like the molecules of my body just gave up. One moment I was leaning against the cold metal of the galley, and the next, I was nothing. Not in quote, nothing in quote, as in gone, but in quote, nothing in quote, as in weightless. The air, that thin, freezing air, didn't feel cold anymore. It didn't in Opos, feel like anything. I remember the last thing my physical eyes saw. It was a tray of plastic cups sliding across the floor. The sound of it should have been a sharp, scraping noise. But it was silent. Completely, deafeningly silent. That's when the fear hit me. Not the fear of dying. I think I was already past that. But the fear of the void. It was like being swallowed by a giant, dark lung. I tried to gasp. I tried to reach for my chest, to feel my heart. But my hands didn't and Opos, meet anything. I was just a point of view, floating in a thick, heavy darkness that felt like it had its own personality. It felt like it was watching me. And then, I was looking down. I wasn't Opos, in the darkness anymore. I was hovering, right against the ceiling of the plane. I could see the top of the luggage bins. They were covered in a thin layer of dust that no passenger ever sees. I remember thinking, and quote, we really need to clean that, and quote. It's funny what your brain focuses on when you're dead. I looked down the aisle. The chaos was still happening, but it looked like a movie playing at 0.25 speed. I saw Sarah, my friend. She was on her knees next to someone. She was screaming. I could see her throat muscles straining, her face turning bright red. But I couldn't and Opos, hear her. Then I saw the person she was hovering over. It was a woman in a navy blue uniform. Her legs were tangled under a meal cart. One of her shoes, the standard black heels we have to wear, had fallen off. I looked at her face. It was me. I looked so small, like a discarded doll. I didn't and Opos, feel sorry for her. I didn't and Opos, feel like that body was in quote, Lauren in quote, anymore. It was just a suit I had been wearing. But the fear stayed, because I realized I couldn't and Opos, go back. The roof of the plane started to feel thin, like it was made of paper. I felt this pull. A magnetic tug at the back of what used to be my head. I tried to grab onto the oxygen masks hanging from the ceiling. My in quote, hands in quote, just passed through them like smoke. I was being pulled up, through the metal, through the wiring. And suddenly, I was outside, at 30,000 feet. In the middle of a storm I couldn't and Opos, feel. The wind should have been screaming at that altitude. But there was only that sound again. The silence. I was floating above the wings of the plane, watching it descend through the clouds like a heavy, metal bird. Then, the sky changed. The blue turned into a deep, velvet violet, and I felt a presence. I still don't understand how to describe it. it wasn't an Apos, TA person. It was like a wall of pure, ancient consciousness. It was everywhere. I felt a sudden, sharp fear. The kind of fear you feel when you realize you are standing in front of something so vast you can and Apos, T see the edges. It didn't and Apos, T speak with words. It was more like a vibration in my being, It showed me the child's teddy bear from the cabin floor. Then it showed me 1,000 other teddy bears in 1,000 other rooms. It showed me that every scream on that plane was just a tiny ripple in a much larger ocean. I felt so insignificant. But in that insignificance, there was a weird comfort. The presence didn't and Apos, T judge me for forgetting to wash my mug, or for being a flight attendant. It just was. I remember wanting to stay in that violet light forever, just to understand the silence. But then, the presence shifted. It felt like a door slamming shut in a deep hallway. Thump. The pain hit me like a physical wall. I felt the freezing air rush back into my lungs, burning like liquid fire. My eyes snapped open. The first thing I saw was the red emergency light and Sarah's face. She was crying, her hands on my chest. She's back. Lauren, stay with me. I tried to tell her about the violet sky. I tried to tell her that the silence wasn't Apos, T empty. But all that came out was a ragged, choked cough. We made an emergency landing 20 minutes later. That was 4 years ago. I still work for the airline, which surprises most people. But I'm different now. Sometimes, when I'm in the middle of a crowded airport or a noisy city street, I just stop. I close my eyes and I look for that silence. Most people are terrified of being alone with their thoughts, of the quiet. But I know the truth now. The panic, the noise, the screaming, that's the illusion. The silence, that's the only thing that's actually real. I still have that black shoe from the flight. The one that fell off when I died. I keep it in my closet, just to remind myself that I'm still wearing this suit for a little while longer.